If you've ever started a project and then got distracted only to never return to it again, then this video is for you because I'm talking about the struggles of finishing a project when you have ADHD. And while I share my personal do's and don'ts on how to get things done, I'm going to work on this project of my own. It's been sitting in my studio for more than 6 months, untouched, and it's time that I work on it, even if I don't finish it in this video. So let's get started. So a couple of weeks ago, I made a video on decision making, and I asked you if I should finish this project or start the dollhouse in the back there. Between the comments, DMs, and my family weighing in, it became clear that most of you wanted me to finish what I started. That's what I'm going to do. If I'm being honest, it is a little overwhelming. Going back to a project after you've put it away for an ADHDer kind of means we have to sort of start all over again because we forget where we left off. And that's hard to do when you've lost interest in a project. Before we get into the do's and don'ts, let's talk a little bit about my process. So for me, it starts with going over the parts that I hadn't finished and fixing things that I didn't like or that had not worked out. I'll show you. I actually had to cut this little box back out so I could fix the inside and then glue it back on. I also finished painting this roof, which doesn't seem like much, but it's not quite finished yet. Then I'm going to actually add things to above here and finish off these details down here. I like to say that my art process is all about problem solving. Solving problems I create for myself because I don't plan ahead. And this piece is no different. Had I thought about it, I would have started with the background and worked my way up. But that's not what I did. Instead, I built the first parts. Luckily, I haven't attached them yet. That's what I'm going to be working on next, but I doubt that I'm going to be able to finish that in this video, which brings up my next point. Sometimes it's better just to accept that the progress you make is worth celebrating. Because if I waited until I finished this piece to celebrate, it may never get done. And that's a waste. When I was younger, I gave up on a lot of things. I dropped out of high school, had to go back. I dropped out of art school twice. I quit jobs, ended relationships, all because I didn't know that I needed dopamine to function. And I was using the novelty and excitement of new endeavors to give me a dopamine boost. And it really caused a lot of shame. As I've gotten older, I've gotten much better at generating that dopamine within myself through challenge and interest. But I want to state that it has never been laziness. It's an executive function issue. And that's because of the dopamine drop. We get so much dopamine when we're starting something new. And once it stops being new, that dopamine drops significantly. Starting something is exciting. Finishing it, not so much. You'd think that it would be because there's a celebration in completing something. For neurotypicals, for most ADHDers, that excitement and celebration doesn't happen because in order to feel those things, you have to have enough dopamine in your system. And we don't. So what ends up happening is that we finish something and all we sense is like a vague sense of relief that it's finally over. And then we have to move on to the next challenge. So that's why some of us have doctorates simply because they kept going to school chasing this feeling of accomplishment that just never happened. And for every single one of us that has accomplished amazing things and gotten their PhDs or whatever, there's another group of us that can't seem to finish anything they've started. And like I said, I was one of those people for a very long time. It creates so much shame inside of yourself because you don't understand why you can't just finish something, especially if it's something that you care deeply about. And when you feel like you can't finish anything, it's really difficult to convince yourself that you can accomplish anything. But unfinished does not mean failure. You are still a creative powerhouse. That's what I tell myself when I'm staring at this thing for 6 months and haven't worked on it. The truth is, I still love this project. I want to see it to completion. I know that it will bring me so much joy. But wanting and doing are two entirely different things for an ADHDer. I think we need to redefine what success is for our brains. And that doesn't mean that we have to give up on achievements. It just means that we have to reshape what that looks like and how we achieve it. For instance, if you're doing a craft project for fun and it stops being fun, that project is done. Just because we started a project doesn't mean we actually have to finish that project. Sometimes that's not true. If we're making something for somebody else or it's a project for work that has a deadline, sure, those projects need to get done. There's a reason for that. And we need to use all our tools to make that happen. But if the goal is just to have fun and to relax, let it go. Choosing to be done before a project is fully realized can actually be very empowering because you're making the choice rather than allowing those shoulds to get in the way of your happiness. As an artist, I work in so many different mediums. And for a long time, I felt like that was the problem that was holding me back because I couldn't choose a specific style. I couldn't choose a specific medium and let the rest go. I love all art, and it's really difficult for me to choose between all my babies. That's another reason I love working in miniatures because there's a little bit of everything involved. Some days I'm painting, some days I'm sculpting. No project is the same. Every single element is its own little problem to be solved. And I love that. My brain loves that. So if you're having a hard time pinning down your style and you're being told that you need to, you don't. That is a neurotypical's idea of success. And that's what I mean by a reframe. Neurodivergents do not need to live to the standards that neurotypicals put on each other. We're bigger and better and more adept at having multiple interests than they are. It is not our downfall. In fact, Creatively Divergent, the art class, not this channel, is all about exploring different art styles. And it ends up being such a strength of mine to have the knowledge in all these different areas so I can help other neurodivergents figure out what kind of art they like to make when they don't know. Now let's talk do's and don'ts. The first do is something I've already talked about. It's mini goals. Break a bigger project into tiny little fragments and celebrate each time you finish one of those fragments. It doesn't have to be a big grand project. Like I said, every single one of these windows is its own project. But more than that, every candle, every plant, every picture hanging in the walls inside is its own project. And that's giving me the dopamine to keep going, even if things get challenging. The first don't is time blocking. Now, don't get me wrong. Time blocking can be incredibly helpful, especially for ADHDers due to what some people call time blindness. I have a whole thing about that. I don't like the term time blindness. I don't think we're blind to time. I think we're sensitive to the reality of time, but that's a different episode. You can check that out after this one. But my point is that time blocking can end up feeling really limiting because we can't really estimate how long it's going to take to do a project. Sure, we can set a timer for 20 minutes, but generally speaking, that timer is just going to go off mid-project and it's going to interrupt our flow, make us feel bad because we're not done yet, and just throw us off for the rest of the day because we're not following these time block rules that don't exist in the first place. We made them up to help. If they're not helping, get rid of them. If they are helping, fantastic, use them. That's great. But if they're causing you more stress than it's worth, then don't worry about it. Don't use them. The second do is tracking your visual progress. Take photos and videos to help you remember where you started and the steps you've taken. You're going to forget your achievements. That's the ADHD way. So having a record of what you've achieved, whether it's a creative project or a promotion at work, at the end of the year, if you keep track of all your accomplishments, you'll be amazed at how many incredible things you've actually accomplished and just moved on from and forgotten all about. The same thing happens with individual projects. So keep a visual record of that progress so that you can refer back to it and you can get dopamine just from looking at those photos and remembering how each accomplishment made you feel. But don't use visual cues as a means to shame yourself. I did this with this thing for so long. It sat in my studio on full display, but unfinished. And every time I saw it, there was that twinge of shame and guilt for not working on it. It did not make me want to work on it. We do these sorts of things to remind ourselves that we have this project. But if we don't have the dopamine to work on that project, it doesn't matter if we're reminded. The reminder just makes us feel bad. So tuck those projects that you're not working on anymore away. You can either put them in a closet or even pack them into the storage containers or whatever you're using to store your supplies for that project. That way, the next time, whether it's a week or 6 months later, when you want to work in that medium again, you'll open up that storage box and there'll be an unfinished project that you will suddenly have all these new ideas for, and you'll have a renewed excitement to finish it. If you leave it out, you never get to have that sense of renewed excitement. It just stares at you, making you feel bad for not working on it. I call these shame triggers, and I use them all the time and then get upset with myself because they don't work and they just make me feel bad. And then I have to remember that I'm neurodivergent and shaming myself into doing something never works. And then I get rid of the project or I put it away. And then suddenly I have more dopamine when I come into the studio because I don't have this unfinished project reminding me of my failures the moment I come into the room. So make it fun. That's the next do. ADHDers need to be in positive emotion for our dopamine to kick in and our executive function to work. If it's not fun or challenging or exciting, we are not going to have the dopamine to do it. We can't shame ourselves into activity. It just doesn't work for our brain, no matter how hard we try. The hardest part sometimes is just letting go, letting a project go unfinished, potentially forever. And I think this comes down to us needing to feel like we're accomplishing things. So again, the best advice I have is to stop worrying about finishing projects, especially if they're craft or hobby related projects, and just start celebrating the progress you make and the process of making instead of the final product. You will find so much more joy from that, and you will be so much more productive from that. And that's the best way to make our ADHD brains work for us. Remember, for neurodivergence, creativity is an incredibly powerful thing. And if you'd like to learn more about that, check out the video above, and I'll see you next week. Bye.